So, uh, like Krishna asked Arjuna to be a sthita prajna, be situated uh, in the, as a like in equanimity. And Arjuna asked the questions: what are the qualities of sthita prajna? How does he control his senses? How does he react to the situations? Uh, uh, how does he walk? Like that means. So, and Krishna was explaining that. Krishna was precisely giving answers to each and every aspect. It's like so, and finally, he comes to the point where he differentiates, means how a sthita prajna different from a materialist or like ordinary person who is on the bodily platform. Okay, so basically every living entity in this material world is actually uh, just like animals act on instincts. Like in the same way the human beings also, they act by as per the circumstances. They actually they do whatever is good, how much you're, like if you see in the business, they do whatever is required to get profit. But what is that's a, it's a karmi, means like a, they will like a, for the situation, for the given situation, what can give him the happiness, that they will do without any thought. So, and what is, who is a karma yogi, or who is a person who is a sthita prajna, is one who is abiding by some principles. One who is leading his life in the path of dharma. He actually gives value to the principles. So, and here Krishna is saying, will briefly gives the introduction before moving to the karma yoga section. So in this verse, Indriyam hi charatam yanmano nuvidyayate tadastya harati prajnam vayurnavam ivambasi. One of the moving senses which mind follows steals away the intelligence as the wind moves away a boat on the water. So basically, until the previous verses, we saw the importance of sense control. How even the greatest of the great personalities, when their senses are not controlled, they got distracted. They actually fell down from their position. So this, how does they get this? How does they elevate themselves? By the process of, by process. What is it mean by austerity? See, basically, why the austerity will have that power? Means like if somebody, some sage, he's sitting somewhere and not eating the way we are eating, not doing not enjoying life the way we are enjoying, and he, he seems to be externally doing nothing, but internally he is very much busy in controlling his senses the way, because he is controlling his mind, he is focusing on Paramatma, he is controlling on his sadhana. So that is called tapasya. So that tapasya, when it is performed rigorously, then he will in the process of Ashtanga Yoga, he will acquire certain powers. How these powers come? By because the Atma by itself is equal in quality with the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord has Ananta Shakti, means he has infinite powers. He can do anything out of anything. So there is nothing impossible for Krishna. So in the same way, living entity being the part and parcel of Krishna, when it approaches, when it becomes purified by its material conditioning, material contaminations, it will start acquiring its original properties. How a living entity enjoys in the spiritual world. So what is the difference between a person in the spiritual world and to the person in the material world is, a person in the spiritual world is completely pure of all the material contamination. But a person in the material world is covered by the modes of nature. Now we already discussed, right? How we are covered by a subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego, and then covered by gross body. Hmm? And mind will, like a subtle body will have, mind will have different desires and experiences, and intelligence will be like, no, either spiritually motivated or materially motivated, and ego is already in ignorance. So that will cover up the original nature of the soul. So when a person becomes purified in his attempts, he will acquire certain characteristics, uh, certain qualities of the pure soul. In a purified state, everybody can acquire all those things, because in the spiritual world, whatever the person desires will happen by his desire, their desire only. That's why in the spiritual world it is called every tree is a kalpavukshati. Every, even a particle of dust is conscious. So, but that is a position of the person who is in the sense control. But when a person is bewildered by the like no dragged away by the sense, like no, or deviated by the sense enjoyment, then his his efforts or his energy will be focused on the external things, not internal. Means he becomes contaminated, because he tends to enjoy the matter. Then he will be covered, and his subtle body will be polluted again. So, and that's why it is saying that no, even a bhakti yogi, or even a karma yogi, dhyana yogi, we know, right, there are 4 types of yogis. Okay, karma yogi, jnana yogi, dhyana yogi, and bhakti yogi. And these 4 types of yogis, by practice, by following that specific path, gradually progress towards the path of self-realization. What is self-realization? To know who they really are. To identify themselves other than the soul is misidentification. It's in ignorance, right? They are pure by nature. They are fully Sachidananda. Means Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, and Ananda means bliss. But if they, by due to their misidentification, focuses on anything material, then they will again brought into the material conditionings. So that's how, like, he's saying, like, why? Because Krishna says in the previous verses that lust is the enemy of the living entities. Because what is lust? Lust is means Atmendriya Priti Kama, Krishnendriya Priti is called Prema. Means if we engage everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, that is called Prema, that is called Bhakti. And if we engage everything for ourselves, it's called Kama. Kama means lust. So when we, as I said, in Sanskrit, one word can be used in many different meanings can be given to one word. So here the word Atma means not soul. Atma means the mind and senses. Means if anybody engages this, anybody indulges in sense gratification, then it is called lust, which is independent from Krishna consciousness. You can offer everything to Krishna, and then you can take rest of it as prasad. You can do whatever you are doing here in this material world as a service to Krishna. That's how the activity gets purified. So when one deviates from that path due to the influence of any of the senses, either it be eyes, nose, ego, mind, then he loses his progress, he loses its purity. So this source examines that a person with no intelligence due to lack of control of the mind. Okay, and among the senses moving towards their respective sense objects, mind follows the senses. Okay, and Srila Prabhupada writes, the best way to control the senses is to engage them in Krishna conscious activity. or in the process of bhakti. Otherwise, if you see like sense gratification can never be satisfied. Senses can never be satisfied. The more you feed to the senses, the more they demand. So, and the best way, what is wrong with keep on enjoying the senses means, what is the difference between a nicely cultivated child and a spoiled child? Because spoiled child means he was given full freedom without any control, and nicely cultivated child, child which has taught how to behave, how to what are the manners, what to do and what not to do. No? So why? Because the nicely cultivated child will have that controlling ability. He knows what to do and what not to do, whom to respect, what is his area of, freedom, freeness. So like that. So that's how, the senses for the development of for us to progress in spiritual life, the control of senses is very important. So then the easiest way to control the senses is to engage everything in Krishna consciousness. Means only engaging senses, only thing in which the Krishna service is involved. Means like we can do whatever we are, but we can dovetail that activity in the service of Krishna. So, and Prabhupada gives the example of Maharaj Ambarish. No, we discussed, right, Ambarish and Durvasa Muni story. So, Ambarish Maharaj, he was the king of the entire planet. Basically, there is nothing that he cannot have. But, like if you see, if a person who doesn't have money, he will do nothing. He will just sit idle. Means, okay, there is a means, because that we can say that okay, he doesn't have power to do anything, because even if you want to enjoy, he cannot enjoy because he doesn't have any money or any influence or any freedom, and means any power or no wealth. But a person who is the emperor of the entire planet, that person with fully controlled senses, and Durvasa Muni was the greatest of the sages, and he even surpassed Durvasa Muni. How is it possible? Somebody just like for example, to say in the gross terms, somebody who's working out so hard to build the muscles and increase the bodily strength, and another person is doing nothing, just sitting and doing simple things, and that person is way more powerful than this person who did workouts and all those things. Means, why I am saying this means Durvasa Muni followed the process of Ashtanga Yoga. The Ashtanga Yoga process is very difficult. Controlling the senses, controlling the mind, and sitting and meditating for years and years and years. So that's how he reached that stage of Brahmarshi or Maharshi, that position. And Ambarish Maharaj, he was the king. King means he has entered, he has all the objects of sense gratification at his disposal. Women, wealth, fame, association of materialistic people, name, everything. And he can be enjoying them. If you see any wealthy person or any wealthy a kid coming from the wealthy family, they will be very arrogant. Why? Because that is their nature, because they can behave however they want, and that has to be tolerated by others. He imagines like that, I have the right to do what I can do because I have the power of wealth behind me. So means like Kunti Maharani prays, when Krishna is leaving the after Kurukshetra war, when Krishna is leaving to Dwaraka, Kunti Maharani offers some prayers. In that prayers he says, no, Janmaishwarya Sruta Sribir Eda Mana Madah Puman, means Janma means the birth, Aishwarya the wealth, Janmaishwarya Shruti means the knowledge, Sri means wealth. This means somebody who is born in a high family, high caste, nice Brahmin family, or intellectual family, high birth, Aishwarya, the wealth, Janma Aishwarya Shruti means the knowledge, Sri means beauty. So these four factors, somebody is little beautiful, they will have so much arrogance. and not everybody, somebody. Okay, so most of the time. And if someone who has all these qualities, somebody is very beautiful, somebody is very educated, somebody is no, Janma Aishwarya, they're very wealthy and coming from nice family and still humble and very down to earth person, that is that is possible only by the causeless mercy of Krishna, unless they have previous lives Sukruti, because previous life devotion service, or maybe their parents have cultivated them so nicely. So that is the difference. Means Ambarish Maharaj, even though he has so much of deviations, distractions around him, he was able to fully control his senses. How is he able to control his senses? Like eyes, he only use them to see the take darshan of Krishna. And nose, he only uses them to smell the roses or flowers which are offered to Krishna, or the incense that are offered to Krishna. And ears, he only used to hear the Krishna Katha. And the legs and the other bodily organs, he only used to engage, going to temple. Hands, he used in the engaging, cleaning the temple of Krishna. And then the sense of touch. Yeah. So everything, all the senses, he engaged in Krishna consciousness, in the service of Krishna. So that's how he was able to surpass even the greatest of the mystic. Durvasa Muni feared, even Indra fears of Durvasa Muni. So that kind of person was defeated by Ambarish Maharaj, who is a simple householder, not even a simple householder, he was a king. So that is the example, means that devotional service has such that much power. You can be where you are, but just following the process of devotional service, you can attain the ultimate benefit.
So Durvasa Muni is that means the same who converted his wife into stone?
No, that is Gautam Rishi. In Ramayana, right? Is Gautama and Ahalya. Gautam Rishi is a very nice person. Man, every Durvasa Muni is also very nice person, very nice, great person. But he had a curse from his father-in-law, because he has a problem of anger. He is the incarnation. Huh? I did I tell you last time?
Did you say, yeah, you said that incarnation of
Shiva. He was the plenary expansion of Shiva, and the Shiva, like Shiva can be easily pleased. Lord Shiva can be easily pleased. That's how demons take advantage of Lord Shiva. Like they do tapasya, they please Lord Shiva, and they are asked with so like no benedictions which are and then cause trouble to all the living entities. So that is, and Durvasa Muni, why he got him is like Purana says that his father-in-law cursed him. That like because actually Durvasa Muni once I don't even I don't remember the name of his father-in-law. He was also great sage. He used to have a daughter, and his daughter was not very intelligent. He was little bit you call Mandabuddhi also. So like and Durvasa Muni once he visited that his father-in-law, and like to be father-in-law, and said, okay, I would like to make you can give Kanyadan, she will be helpful for my rituals and my spiritual practices. And his father-in-law says that no, you are very angry person, and my daughter-in-law is sometimes my daughter is not very intelligent, she makes mistakes, and you don't have the ability to control your anger, no? So I don't want to marry you to this my daughter. But this Durvasa Muni insists him, says no, don't worry, I will manage, I will tolerate, I will never be angry on her. So as usual, she get he takes he Durvasa Muni gets married to her, and then what happens? Once times like in some, she commits mistake, and he was not able to control his anger. He looked at her in a fierce glance, and just by her glance, because of his power, she gets burned into ashes. That is the power of aesthetics. Means like they have so much power. And one time this father-in-law visits his like Durvasa Muni's cottage and asks, where is my daughter? and he didn't respond, and the father-in-law sees through his Divya Drishti what happened, and he curses, "No, I told you not to marry her, and you married, and you actually killed her." So, and due to your anger, you will be insulted, greatly insulted by one of the devotee. So that's how this, like due to that curse, Durvasmuni offended Ambarish Maharaj, not knowing the sincerity of Ambarish Maharaj. And we should never actually belittle the position of Durvasmuni, because even Krishna also considered Durvasmuni as a great person, and he respects as a guru. Okay. And further, Krishna says, how does a Sthita Prajna controls? How does Sthita Prajna walk? Means, how does Sthita Prajna deals with the life situations? Okay. Tasmadyasya mahabaho nigrahanti sarvasha indriyanindriyartair tebyas tasya prajna pratishtita. He who completely restricts the senses from the sense objects by fixing the mind on me, O mighty Arman, is fixed in prajna. So, Sthita Prajna, what is Prajna means? Somebody who is fixed in his resolution, determination. Just like we actually lead our life, like we go to office, maintain family, and then deal with our society and everything. And we are actually pulled into many things while we are doing that. So Krishna here is saying, he who completely restricts the senses from the sense objects. And then what does he do? He fixes by fixing his mind on me. So that is the advantage of Bhakti Yoga process. Just, can you turn on that incense? It is burning. So the power of Bhakti Yoga is, if we sincerely engaged in the process of Bhakti Yoga, you don't have to do separate endeavor to control your senses or anything else. It will automatically purify all our activities. So we don't have to do any separate endeavor. No, that's why in Srimad Bhagavatam, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatyasu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahaitukim. Means, if we engage in the bhakti of Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayatyasu Vairagya, means that Bhakti Yoga process will increase our Vairagya. What is Vairagya? Disinterested in the objects of sense gratification. Disinterested in sense enjoyment. Janayatyasu Vairagyam. And okay, once in a while we develop, oh, what is the sense enjoyment? I want to give up everything, and no, I don't need all these things. So that Vairagya will develop, no? That is called, sometimes it is called Smashana Vairagya. If somebody passed away in our close circles, we develop some kind of renunciation. Oh, no, there is nothing in this material life. That is called Smashana Vairagya. So like that can means, there are some situations when we are disappointed, or when we come across some failures, we get total kind of disinterest, Vairagya, in these material things. But that Vairagya will not last for long. After 2-3 days, then we will again continue the same thing. So, but a person who is engaged in the process of Bhakti Yoga, Janayatyasu Vairagyam, for him Vairagya will develop, and to retain that he needs Jnanam. Jnanam, Bhakti Yoga process will give Jnanam also. Jnanam cha yad ahavitikim. So, just by fixing our mind on Krishna, we can easily control our senses, just like Ambarish Maharaj did. So, one who fixes on mind can become established in Atma. And one can conquer enemies, we should conquer senses. Like our acharyas and sages, they actually give such a great importance that no, senses are not your friends, they are your enemies. Always be aware, be alert, always be cautious where your senses are taking you or where they are engaging you. Don't let them lose. Hmm. Letting senses loose means letting the poisonous snakes in your bed. They can bite, they can, what you call, strike you anytime. Hmm. So see, a person who is with very loose in sense control, he will think, oh, I'm doing my puja, my sadhana nicely, I'm doing my job nicely, I'm not offending anybody, my life is going good, I'm good and I'm doing good to others. But when his senses are not engaged in process of bhakti, when he let the senses loose and he's surrounded by the objects of sense gratification, the senses will attack, because a weak moment will come where you will lose the control on your senses. And once that moment comes, once the senses experience the sense objects, which is like no forbidden sense object. Okay, like what are the forbidden things in in the process of bhakti is no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating. So these are the four things that our acharyas, gurus, asked to restrain from. These are because they are the four pillars of dharma. Means satyam, saucham, daya, satyam. These are the four pillars of dharma. But these four regulations, when we follow these four regulations of no meat eating, no illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, we can be situated in the dharma, in the process of dharma. Okay. But when we let our senses loose, when we are not cautious what we are watching, what we are hearing, and with whom we are associating with, our senses can cheat us and lead to our fallen just like anything. That's why our acharyas, they are very careful, they are very strict with the sense control. So here Baldev Vidyabhushan is saying, senses, one should conquer the senses just like one conquers an enemy. So because why they are enemies? Because the enemy will do utmost damage to us. He will rob us our wealth, or he is always, he'll put us in dangerous situation. He is a threat to our safety. In the same way, our senses are like that. Just because of the sense gratificatory thing, will be taken away from the spiritual path, and that will lead to repeated birth and death. Trying always anchoring to gratify senses. So that's why this senses has to be very carefully, this controlling of senses has to be nicely done, carefully done. So, and as we discussed, Prabhupada also write in his purport that engaging in the service of Krishna, or engaging our senses in the service of Krishna, will easily do that for us. Okay. Then Krishna says, what is the difference between this a materialistic person and a self-realized person? Yanisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagarti samyami yanisha yasyam jagarti bhutani sanisha pashyato mune. The Sthita Prajna is awake in the night when all other living entities are asleep. The night of observant Sthita Prajna is the time duration which all the living entities are awake. It means for a Sthita Prajna, for a self-controlled person, what is daytime for a self-controlled person is nighttime for a materialistic person. What is nighttime for a materialistic person is a daytime for a Sthita Prajna. Means Sthita Prajna, who is a Sthita Prajna? Who has full control on his senses, who is fully satisfied, who is resolute in his determination. He is called Sthita Prajna. So what is daytime for a self-controlled person? Means the objects in which Sthita Prajna or a self-controlled person takes interest, a materialist person will not take interest in them at all. See, if you see some devotees here, we have many sincere devotees. They lead life, they maintain families, and they do their job, and they do their spiritual practice, and they lead a very controlled life, disciplined life, and they give utmost importance to the spiritual life. Their entire material life revolves around their spiritual life. And if you ask that kind of person, what is your goal in life, what do you want to achieve in life? So I just want to know, like, progress in my spiritual life. I want to become more pure and make advancement in bhakti. I want to serve Krishna. I want to serve gurus. That is their goal. And if you go and say that to a materialistic person, what do you say? These people are crazy. That is the first statement they will say. Why? Because they think that, oh, we got life, like now we have the facility, we have the strength, we have the energy to enjoy. Why these people are unnecessarily wasting their valuable time and energy in this like practices? They think these are sentimental things. They have their own definition, sentimental, superstitious, or something like that. But only a person who is following the spiritual practice know what is happening within him. Every time he listens, every time he follows the spiritual process of like we saw right, the five potent forms of spiritual practices: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, all those practices. Every time he follows them, every time he control the senses in following them, he achieves peace of mind. He achieves self-satisfaction. He can realize, he can experience the reciprocations from Krishna. He can see a great change in his life. But a materialistic person, he doesn't want to waste any of his lifetime for all these spiritual practices. That's how what a spiritual, what is Siddha Prajna values in his life is actually utterly disinterested for a materialistic person. But what a materialistic person is interested in enjoying the senses, is interested in accumulating money, is interested in name, fame, how much he's enjoying. You want to show off, you want to post nice pictures, you want to go this place, that place, post pictures in the Facebook so that his friends will think, oh, he's great, he's accomplishing many things like that. So everything what his life is centered around accomplishing more and more sense enjoyment, more and more objects of sense gratification, which are going to end at the time of his life. But on the contrary, a self-controlled devotee, what does he do? He does the needful to maintain the body. He does needful to maintain the family. He does needful on the material terms, but his life is centered around the spiritual life. Okay, so that is the mean. Like here it says, even if you take literally, Siddha Prajna is awake in the night when all the living entities are asleep. Means, like, see, the devotees, they go to bed early and they rise very early. On the contrary, the materialists, they go to bed very late and rise very late. Means, like, most of the time, like it is said that from morning 2 to 6, 2 to 5, it is called Brahma Muhurta. So any spiritual practice that you do at that point, at that time, it is going to have many folds beneficial. You can make greater advancement because the surroundings will be in the mode of goodness. Our mind will be very calm, and it is easy to control our mind and senses at that point of time. So that's why a spiritualist, what does he do? He go to bed early and rises early and practices. Of course, this may not be possible for many of us who is working or who is other responsibilities. That is means at least you can wake up at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock, so that you can do your spiritual practice in the morning and use that time. So that is the cream of the day. Means, like, anything that you do early in the morning, you will get great, very ultimate success. If you see even the materialistic level also, the great businessmen, like richest personalities like Ambani or this wealthiest person, the secret is they start working right in the early in the morning, 4 o'clock. They every day without many successful people, they rise very in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, they will wake up and they focus on whatever they are doing. So, but means that is the very crucial time. Why you want to use that time? For if you want to use for materialistic thing, materialistic activity, you will achieve greater material success. But if you want to use the time for spiritual activity, you will get great spiritual advancement. Okay. So, and on the contrary, the materialists sleep very late, and they like it is said that from 2 to 6 in the morning is called Brahma Muhurta. From 6 to 7 to 8 in the night, it is Rajogun. Means it is in the mode of passion. And from 8 to 12 in the night or 2 in the night, it is Tamogun. So these people, that materialistic people, what they do, they actually sleep nicely from 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning and wake up after 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock. Maybe if they are working, they'll wake up at 8 o'clock. Or if they are not working, they'll wake up at 10 or 12. Means entire of the previous, they are just losing that for sleep. Sleep is in ignorance just, okay? And they wake up in the mode of passion, and then they just maintain their body and then enter into the evening. Evening time is all the bars, pubs will open. They will enter into them and then they will spend their life there. So that is the goal of materialistic person. He just want to enjoy and keep on enjoying the senses. And that kind of person, he can never taste the he can never taste the spiritual the happiness in spirituality, because he will only hanker for the happiness acquired from sense gratification. So that's why in the previous verse Krishna says that, right? If mind is not peaceful, no one can be happy. Happy in the sense like this, when we see when we acquire any object of sense gratification, we feel excited, we feel like agitated, or we feel like our senses become pleased for some time. This is only for to demand again and again. That will lead to turbulence in the mind, and then mind will be very unhappy. Okay, so that is the position of Chitta Prajna. And Krishna says, and how is Chitta Prajna situated? How does he control? Means apurvamanam achalam pratishtam samudramapa pravishyanti yadvat tavad kamayam pravishanti sarve sasanti apnoti na kama kami. Just like rivers enter in the ocean, which is fixed, which has fixed banks and is never quite full, so the objects of enjoyment enter into the Chitta Prajna, but he remains peaceful. He does not so far desire of those objects. Means like even though many rivers pouring a lot of water, millions of liters of water into the ocean constantly, that ocean will remain stable. It doesn't get overflowed, it didn't get agitated, anything like that. Means ocean is not bothered at all. Like sometimes in the summer, rivers put on very little water, but sometimes in the rainy season, rivers will be flooding and put lot of water. So in either cases, even if you get, sometimes you get lot of less water, this ocean is not bothered, and even if it gets more water, ocean can easily handle. In the same way, when he in a Sthita Prajna, when he doesn't get sense gratification, when the things doesn't go on his way, he is not disturbed at all. Just like the rivers putting in the water in the dry season. But when he gets favorable condition, and all these, he gets objects of sense gratification, nice food, association of different people, wealth, fame, name, beauty, he gets all those things. Still, he is not disturbed at all. Means he just sees them as a witness, means he just do his duty according to the time, place, and circumstances. He doesn't identify himself with the circumstances or the situations. He is situated in his position only. Okay, and then Krishna explains. विहाय कामान् यः सर्वान् पुमांश्च चरते निःस्पृहः निर्ममो निरहङ्कारः स सात्वम् अधिगच्छति. He who gives up the objects of enjoyment but carries out action without desire for them, being devoid of possessiveness and ego, attains peace. Means even though he acquires objects of sense gratification, he doesn't associate with he doesn't use it for enjoyment. He sees the utility. What is the utility of this object in my situation? So that's why Prabhupada says, for our movement, utility is the purity is the force, utility is the principle. Means how we utilize everything in Krishna's service, in our spiritual advancement. That is the principle. And purity, how much purity, internal purity that we are developing is the essence. Okay, so he's more focused on the essence. See, if too much of money or too much of associating with materialistic people or too much of anything is disturbing him, he will immediately retrieve, just like a tortoise we discussed, right? That's how he controls the senses. And being devoid of possessiveness, he's devoid of possessiveness. If you want to lose anything, he will just give it off. He doesn't become attached to something. He doesn't identify with any material success, or he doesn't identify with any material failures also. He just be witness. Okay, success came. What is the matter? How can you success in Krishna service? Okay, failure came. Okay, what I can learn? That's it. Yes, he doesn't. Okay, like even if like success comes, something comes with success, like money, fame, name, and all. And he doesn't. Why people are so depressed or so agitated when success comes? Because with success comes name, fame, money, and other things. They think that how much they can enjoy, how much they can show to others, how much they can boast themselves how great they are. But a Sthita Prajna, a self-controlled person, he sees everything as a mercy of Krishna. Only by Krishna's arrangement this is happening, and he just engages that in Krishna's service. And but for a materialistic person, when a failure comes, he will see it's the end of my life. Like if somebody failing in an exam, failing in a relationship, they will actually become so depressed. Sometimes they end up their life also. So means any failure also, they don't identify even with that failure. They see that okay, this is a like they grow through that failures. Means like they take it as an experience, and through going through the experience of failures, the internal strength will develop. So even Sthita Prajna uses that failures as an opportunity to grow in spiritual life. So Kunti Maharani prays to Krishna that Krishna, when there are so many miseries or so many difficult situations in our life, we took shelter of you at your shelter at your lotus feet, and was saved from all great dangers. Because like Pandavas and Kunti Maharani went through a lot of dangers, and she prays, we totally took shelter of your lotus feet and we passed through all those dangers. Now that all the dangers are gone, you are going back to Dwaraka. But if the dangers are to be there for you to be with us, then I prefer dangers only. Means like when the things are very comfortable, we don't have any, everything is going fine, then we have the tendency to be relaxed and forget Krishna. Kunti Maharani prays, let the difficulties be there rather than losing you. That is her mood. So means Sthita Prajna will not identify with failures or successes. He only focuses on how everything can be engaged in Krishna's side, how we can develop spiritually, internally and externally. And then Krishna says, "O son of Partha, this is a situation of attaining Brahman. Attaining that state, one cannot be bewildered and attains Brahma Nirvana even at the time of death." Means somebody who is in that position, who is Sita Prajna, means, see here, Sita Prajna means, I have been mentioning engaging in Krishna's service and like that. But if we see the other commentaries of other non-devotees, means they will rate Sita Prajna means who is the controller of senses. He is not attached to happiness and distress, and his goal is merging into Brahman. Brahman means is an impersonal aspect of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, where they will lose their spiritual identity. Means there is no service, no nothing, there is no reciprocation with Krishna. Just no. Brahman means the moksha means only the way in which there are no miseries, and at the same time there is no happiness also. Basically, that is considered hellish by the devotees. How many of you prefer the situation there are no miseries and at the same time there is no happiness at all? So, for example, we feel hunger, right? If somebody comes and say you, okay, I will give you one mantra, you'll never feel hungry in your life. How many of you would you like to have that kind of benediction? If you don't feel hunger, then but the problem is you cannot eat anything. You don't feel hungry and you cannot eat anything also. So, like that means no miseries in the when we attain moksha, but at the same time no spiritual bliss also. You will experience spiritual bliss being a Brahman, but not the bliss of rendering personal service to Krishna. That's why devotees consider this Brahman Nirvana, merging into Brahman, is hellish. But Brahman Nirvana in one sense is going back to Krishna also, in spiritual term.
So Prabhuji, there are some Buddhist monks.
Yeah, they say that Nirvana.
Yeah.
That Nirvana is what they are saying is the hellish condition. That is means nothingness. Because you are a spirit soul, you have identity, you have the desires. This Satchidananda, that is your nature, and you want to give up your nature and you want to imitate something which you are not. Definitely you will be peaceful, but you don't have any happiness also. Okay? But in a spiritual term, Nirvana means the moksha also means going back to Krishna. Because Krishna, when a devotee remembers Krishna at the time of death, he can actually attain this moksha in 5 ways. Salokya, Samipya, Sarishti, like that means Salokya means going back to the same loka where Krishna is there. Sarupya means attaining the same features of Krishna. Samipya means going to the place where we are very near to Krishna, like that. Like that, there are 5 ways of liberations which devotee attains. So for a devotee, this Brahma Nirvana means going back to spiritual world, either Vaikuntha or Golok Vrindavan, like that, Ayodhya. So that are the qualities of Sita Prajna, and why Sita Prajna is great because of his sense control, because of his being not disturbed by the agitations of the material world, like that. So that is the end of the second chapter. If you have any questions or comments or anything, we can discuss. Hare Krishna. Anybody have any questions on me?
No,
Yes.
Prabhuji.
So I have heard from some monks that not personally but other traditions and stuff that if attain that level of tapasya, that they can remember everything about their past life.
Hmm.
And what happened in their past life, and they can see about their body from without the die in body.
Hmm.
So is it possible? If
Yeah, easily possible.
okay.
If you see, like even like our lot of our sannyasis, they actually explored the spirituality. If you see the Journey Home book is there in our shelf. So where that Radhanath Swami Maharaj, he actually meets many sannyasis, like mystic yogis who have many powers, like who can read minds, who can levitate from the ground. uh, even if you go little like few hundred years of back, there are many yogis who have many mystic powers. Like even there are some astrologers who can tell you who you are in your previous life.
Oh,
It's full details.
oh, okay.
So, but those are all like it's like they are all material in nature. Means like one time what happened is like one person like Prabhupada narrates this story, not to focus on this all gymnastic, somebody doing bring Shivalinga out of air. All those things are very cheap things. Why? Because these Ashtanga yogis, after performing some tapasya, they attain these siddhis of knowing future, reading minds. You just come go in front of you, they read your mind just like a book.
Wow.
What is going on around, they will know everything.
Oh,
So even bhakti yogis, they get empowerment Krishna, they can also know, because see, Krishna is the master of all yoga. Mm. So, and Krishna will give the powers whatever is required for you, whatever is needed for you. See, in the case of Durvasa Muni and Amarish Maharaj, right? Amarish Maharaj has no power at all. Mm. So, and Durvasa Muni is very powerful. He can go to Vaikuntha Loka, he can go to Kailasa, he can go to Swarga Loka. But what happened? So, when for a Bhakti Yogi, Krishna's entire power will be behind that Bhakti Yogi. But for a Ashtanga Yogi, whatever power he have acquired through his intense tapasya, only he can rely on that. And Durvasa Muni relied on his power, but he was ultimately defeated. So that's why we should never talk low about Durvasa Muni, but he actually, it's a pastime where we want to glorify the position of a Bhakti Yogi. That's why he took that position. So means like see that what the story was like now, like in one village, one person was there. He actually in his young age, he renounces this material life and goes to Himalayas and does tapasya for 20 or 30 years and attains some siddhis. And then okay, he thought like, oh, I have attained the perfection of life. And then he comes back to his village. And then when the villagers saw him, they said, oh, where were you all these days? He said, oh no, I was went to Himalayas and did tapasya and I acquired a lot of siddhis. So he actually basically acquires only one siddhi. Siddhi means this mystical powers, okay? Now, then the villagers say, oh, what is we would like to see what you have, what power you have acquired. No, I said, I can walk on the water. You assemble all our villagers, then I will show you. Like that he says. Okay, then all the villagers assemble at one place. Then he started walking on the water, just like he as easily as one walks on the ground. And some ignorant people were mesmerized by that. And but some wise people said, what is, so you did tapasya for 30 years and you acquired this siddhi. What is the use of this siddhi? If I give 5 paisa, this boatman will cross me out of this river. So this you spend all through your life to acquire 5 paisa benefit. So like now there are some yogis who can take a dip in the water here and they can appear wherever they want in this planet. Uh, there are some yogis who can actually through their mystic powers they can grab whatever they want from anywhere. So these are all very cheap things, and we should not we should not be pray for them. Like we should not like we should not be the like we should not get mesmerized or diverted by all those things. Okay. Any questions? Yes, Roj. Yeah. Mm. I didn't understand. Can you repeat that?
That part about no mycelium.
Hmm.
Can you explain that?
So
As per my understanding, what I understand.
yeah, moksha is the highest. Merge into Brahman.
That soul is spiritually blessed, and that's the reason that
Hmm.
I don't know if a soul gets moksha. That
So basically, Prabhu, what happened is, the time of Buddha, right? So I will explain in the maybe it will take time, but right now I'll explain. But in the time of Buddha, in the time of Ashoka, this Buddhism has got a lot of importance. People are started following Buddhism like anything, and they gave up all these Vedic injunctions. And Buddhism teaches that at the end of life, you're going to get nirvana. And Shankaracharya came, his main aim was to counter Buddhism and bring Vedic culture back in India. That's why even the Buddhism born in India, you don't see any Buddhism at all. Why? Because our acharyas knew that this is not the right path. That's how they contracted it by establishing the Dharma again. So Buddhism actually promotes this nirvana, means the nothing, desirelessness is the ultimate. What Buddha realized after doing tapasya is desire is the root cause of suffering, right? You know, right? So, and this is desirelessness is the nirvana. If you attain desirelessness, then you will not have any anxieties at all. So, and Buddhists who are sincere in their practice, they try to attain nirvana by following this desirelessness. But this is unnatural. This is not a natural thing for soul, and this is not Vedic way. It is not authorized at all. Since Buddhism was very high at that point of time, Shankaracharya has to establish nirvana or moksha as the highest. So that no, why are you going for Buddhism? Whatever you are attaining at Buddhism, you can also get here moksha. So come back here and practice this. Like that, he brought them back. After Shankaracharya, many acharyas came. And they established this how we are connected to Krishna while serving Krishna, we will go back to Godhead and engaging loving service to Krishna. That is, as I said, the liberation in the process of bhakti. Okay, you understood, right? Okay, we'll end it here. Rantraj Bhagavad Gita ki Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.